the media, both mainstream and social media, is consumed, and justifiably, over Charlie Kirk's death. At the risk of some simplification, there seem to be two camps. A camp that says Charlie Kirk got what he should because of his comment about gun deaths being a consequence of our Second Amendment rights, and um, others saying that there is no justification for his death and it's wrong to applaud it. And so I've watched some of these videos and some of the comments in the media, and those on the far left, and certainly not all, probably a small minority, they're not just saying he got what he deserved. I've watched some of these videos on social media, and they are gleeful and rejoicing his death over his comment. And I want to talk about that and talk about the other side of the coin, which I will explain in a little bit, and how it reflects a lack of understanding and nuance, and it's counterproductive and just escalates hostilities. And before I do, I want to point out I really was not familiar with Charlie Kirk before this. I knew of him, of course, it would be hard not to, but I had never really watched him except for a couple of short bits of some of his clips. But what I gather from what I've read and the little bit I've watched is that he is undeniably was very, very conservative, and he enjoyed debate. He invited to debate. He thought, under our system of justice, our democracy, debate is good, which it is. It's the foundation of our democracy. It's the foundation of the United States of America. And so he, to my understanding, went to universities and elsewhere and invited people to debate him. And it was in the spirit of working through to see if we can reach consensus or understanding and change people's minds and work together towards resolution. All of those things are laudable. And so before I go on, laudable or not, I'm in the camp that believes he did not deserve to die, and that his death should be lamented. And so at this point, I want to stop and extend my sincerest and most heartfelt condolences to his family. And here's where I want to get into. Actually, before I go into the point that I want to make, I went back because I wanted to see exactly what it was that Charlie Kirk said that is resulting in the far left vilifying him. And so I found the video. And what he said in context is that it is unrealistic to reduce gun deaths to zero, that we can do our best, and we should do our best, to have reasonable regulations to minimize gun deaths. But gun deaths are a consequence of protecting gun ownership under the Second Amendment. And to the extent that we do suffer a certain number of gun deaths per year, that is something reasonable to be expected, and that it is a cost worth suffering. That's the gist of his comment. Don't take my word for it. Go onto YouTube, go wherever, and find the video for yourself and see what he said. But that's the gist of what he said. And like it or not, Charlie Kirk was right. If we are going to have Second Amendment gun rights of some sort, and some right to bear arms, then there are going to be, regardless of how many regulations, instances in which people die as a result of gun use. Even if it's just hunting accidents. That's just reality. And so now I want to shift to the flip side of a related issue, really. And that is this: we have a long history of recognizing the right to protect suspected criminals under our Constitution and to see that they are afforded all of their rights under the Constitution and that they are not convicted if their rights are infringed upon. And there's recognition that as a consequence, guilty people go free, and that is a price worth suffering. It's a principle that goes back to 18th century Great Britain. And the exact quote, it's called Blackstone's ratio. And the exact quote is, "It is better that 10 guilty persons escape than that one innocent suffer." And this is a principle that has been fully embraced and incorporated in American law, going back to our founding fathers who repeated the concept, notably John Adams and Benjamin Franklin. And then in 1895, in a case called Coffin versus United States, the United States Supreme Court announced that principle, and it has been repeated many times by the Supreme Court and other courts in the United States since, and properly so. And that's the foundation upon which all of our constitutional protections for criminal suspects are afforded. Today, so many of those rights are taken for granted because young people know no differently. I'm old enough to remember when Miranda rights were new. Miranda rights are your right to be instructed that before you speak to the police, you be instructed that you have a right not to incriminate yourself and to have a lawyer and these other rights. And Miranda decided in the 60s, recognized that if that right was violated, then the evidence obtained through a confession would not be admissible in court, even if it meant a guilty man going free. And there are other instances of this, the Fourth Amendment and so forth. So often what happens is guilty people do go free because of what we unfortunately refer to in mainstream media and in common parlance, a technicality. Our constitutional rights are not a technicality. They are the rights given to us based on our founding fathers and recognition that in other countries where you are not afforded rights, people are oppressed and people suffer horrible things, death sentence, despite being innocent, because they are tortured into confessions that are not true and other abuses. So these are important rights, not technicalities. But the consequence is that repeat offenders go out and commit heinous crimes, including tortures and deaths of people. And then there's anger over the system, and people get angry with the judges who let them go. And then on occasion, you have comments like, what should happen is the judge and his family should be killed by one of these people. That's a horrible thing to say. That's the flip side of this current situation with Charlie Kirk. Judges who uphold our constitutional rights are sworn to do so. They deserve our respect, not our condemnation. And we need to have civil discourse and talk through the issues. And we do have to analyze what is a reasonable cost of protecting different rights. And we can only have that discussion if we actually talk. And if we allow people like Charlie Kirk and anybody else who wishes to discuss it in a rational way, if they're given a platform to do so, and we have open debate. That's what America is about. So this condemnation of Charlie Kirk, while you may disagree with him and can contend his position and debate it, the condemnation of him as a person overtaking the position he did is absolutely unjustified and inconsistent with liberal democracy and the progressive commitment to the First Amendment that is something I grew up with, but which seems to be going by the wayside. So when your first reaction is condemnation, stop and think and put the shoe on the other foot. Think of other issues where maybe it's the other side and ask yourself, would you want to be condemned for a position you've taken the way you're condemning Charlie Kirk? Again, my condolences to Charlie Kirk's family.